Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be going over a new TCG deck list using the new cards for Evil Heroes along with Fiendsmith. Now I know that some of these cards have not quite been released yet, like for example Evil Hero Vicious Claws, but we know what the cards do, we know what they can do, and I've looked at this list and I think that it is very effective. I've showcased a couple of replays already, and I'm going to be going over kind of what I think the deck can do and how it functions. So let's get started. For the hand traps, we are playing 3 copies of Mulcharmy Fualos. Mulcharmy Fualos is a winged beast monster with 100 attack points and 600 defense points. If you control no cards, you can discard this card and apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck or from the extra deck, immediately draw 1 card. During the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, your opponent must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck, so the number of your cards in your hand equals the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6. This is not a hard once per turn effect, by the way, which means that you can only activate 1 other Mulcharmy monster effect. So you can use 2 Fualos in the same turn. Okay. So how does this card work? So this card has been called like the Max C of the TCG, kind of. So let's say that your opponent summons, 6 monsters, and then they link all of them off into 3 different link 2s, for example. Or maybe they summon 6 monsters and they exceeds all 3 of them into 3 different exceeds monsters. If you activated Mulcharmy Fualos' effect, during your opponent's turn, you would have drawn 9 cards, which would give you a total of 13 cards in your hand. Then, when your opponent ends their turn, your opponent randomly chooses cards in your hand and returns them to the deck until you have 6 cards in your hand, because he only controls 3 cards. So at the end of the day, it was only a +1 for you, but the important thing about Fualos is not necessarily that you get more cards in your hand for turn 2. That's what Max C is for. Fualos is to make sure that you can draw into interaction. So you might lose some of your cards at the end of the turn, but you keep all of them in the middle of the turn. That means that you could potentially have 13 cards to work with that might be Infinite Impermanence, or Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, or if it's your turn and you're interacting with your opponent summoning on your turn, potentially you could draw Called by the Grave, or maybe Forbidden Droplet. So having the ability to draw multiple cards and then, getting additional interaction for your opponent, it makes going second less reliant on opening key hand traps. Now you could say that, well, you still have to open the Mulcharmy. There are 3 Mulcharmy cards. We're only choosing to play this one, but you could potentially, if you wanted to, play all 3 of them. Anyway, it's a good card, and it works really well, so we're going to play it at 3, even though that puts us to 43 cards. We're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. Ash doesn't stop nearly as much as she used to in the TCG. Trying to think. There aren't a lot of decks these days that can be stopped by 1 Ash. And that's why they're all in the meta, right? Because Ash has been in the meta for so long that the only decks that still see play are decks that can just accept that the opponent has Ash and play through it. But still, an Ash, a well-timed Ash will limit a key extender that will potentially keep your opponent from summoning 1 extra boss monster at the end of their turn. It also can definitely stop your opponent from playing a card that would potentially break your board. So, yeah. You have to be really smart about playing Ash in the TCG, but as long as you know the matchups, you can make a determination, and especially in Game 2 and Game 3, after you've seen what your opponent does, you can make a determination as to what key piece you want to interrupt that you think would be the most effective. So it's more of a skill testing card in the TCG than it is in Master Duel, but it will still definitely win you some games. We're playing one copy of Called by the Grave to stop Mulcharmies, basically. Forbidden Droplet, send any number of other cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. Choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls, and until the end of the turn, their attack is halved and their effects are negated. Forbidden Droplet is a really good card to play with Mulcharmy, because if you're going first, the Mulcharmy card is kind of a dead card, so it will usually be in your hand, and you can't activate it during your opponent's turn, because unlike Max C, it requires you to control no cards. So Droplet is nice to like get rid of it and use it for something else. It basically, if you have Droplet and Full Almost, then Full Almost basically turns into an Effect Veiler. And then Imperm, because we need cards that we can actually draw into with the Mulcharmy Fuelos, so free negates are always good. Okay, that's all the hand traps. Now for the main deck, we are playing Evil Hero Vicious Claws. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn, and you can only use the second effect of this card's name once per duel. So once per turn, you can target one hero monster on the field, special summon this card from your hand in defense position, and if you do, that monster gains 300 attack points permanently. Cool. That's basically Vicious Claws, which was an equipped spell that the Supreme King played for his evil heroes as a monster, which is excellent. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. Then if you have a monster in your graveyard that mentions Dark Fusion, you can destroy one card on the field. So that's really solid. Yeah, it's only once per duel, but being able to get a free quick effect pop on your opponent's board is excellent. Fantastic. So yeah, a really strong card, and this card makes this card makes Elemental Hero Stratos a one-card combo for evil heroes, and we'll get into that in a minute. Evil Hero Infernal Rider. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Dark Fusion from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Okay, so that's really cool. There are some situations where you don't want to trigger that effect, and we'll go over that. You can banish this card and 4 other monsters from your graveyard to set one Super Polymerization from your deck. Also, until the end of your opponent's turn, you cannot special summon except for hero monsters, and also you can fusion summon fusion monsters that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, with effects other than Dark Fusion. You can only use each effect of Evil Hero Infernal Rider once per turn. Okay, so if we were playing a like Omni-Hero list, then we wanted to use Evil Hero Neos Lord. Evil Hero Infernal Rider is an excellent way to accomplish that, because it lets you draw Super Polymerization, and it lets you fuse one of your opponent's monsters with your Neos to make Evil Hero Neos Lord using Super Polymerization. That is a cool idea. We are not doing that in this deck because we don't want to hero lock ourselves. So we're not even playing the Super Polymerization. We don't have Elemental Hero Neos in the deck. So Neos Lord with Super Poly is not happening. Not in this list. Okay. Unchained Soul of Sharvara. Unchained Soul of Sharvara is a limit 1 card. During the main phase of this card is in your hand. You can target a fiend monster or a face down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card, but while it is face up in the monster zone, you cannot special summon monsters except fiend monsters. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can set one Unchained spell or trap directly from your deck. Okay, so we are playing this card as part of an Unchained package. And the package works like this. It's got Sharvara, it's got Soul Lord of Yama, and it's got Escape of the Unchained. So what you do, Soul Lord of Yama requires any 2 fiend monsters. You link into that, it draws you the Sharvara, you activate Sharvara's effect, destroy the Yama so you can special summon it, link it off with the Sharvara and like any other fiend monster to make Unchained Soul of Rage, and then that lets you set your Escape of the Unchained from the deck. And Unchained Soul of Rage, for those of you that don't know, is a link to that requires 2 monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster. During your opponent's main phase, as a quick effect, you can target one face-up special summon monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one Dark Link monster except Unchained Soul of Rage by using only that opponent's monster and this card you control as material. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a Fiend monster in your graveyard, except Unchained Soul of Rage, and add it to your hand. So, what you do, now you have this, like, basically any 2 monsters got you into the Yama, and then you need 1 more monster to go into Unchained Soul of Rage, and then you set the Escape of the Unchained, which says, target 1 Unchained monster and 1 card on the field, destroy both. So what you do is when your opponent plays a card, you will activate Escape of the Unchained to destroy that card and your Unchained Soul of Rage. Then you activate Unchained Solar of Yama's effect, which is if a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card, special summon a Fiend monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can destroy 1 card you control. So you will banish Yama from your graveyard to revive the Unchained Soul of Rage after it's been destroyed. Unchained Soul of Rage also gets you a Fiend monster back from your graveyard to your hand. Then when your opponent special summons a monster after that, Unchained Soul of Rage can link it off and then summon SP Little Knight, which will also let you banish another card that's on the field. So it's a very clean package for a lot of good interaction. And usually you're going to make this every single turn going first, because it's just clean and easy. All right, now let's talk about the Fiends. Actually, I'm going to say this. It was really easy to talk about the Unchained Soul package like really quickly, but Fiendsmith needs to be like discussed in its own little section. So let me move on to the Evil Heroes first, and then we'll talk about the rest of it. Evil Hero, Sinister Necrom, level 5, 1600 attack, 1800 defense. You can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon an Evil Hero monster from your hand or deck, except Evil Hero, Sinister Necrom. You can only use this effect once per turn. Okay, so with Sinister Necrom, you banish it from the graveyard, you summon your Infernal Rider from the deck, and you draw Dark Fusion. It's great. Evil Hero, Adusted Gold, level 4, light Fiend monster. You can discard this card to add 1 Dark Fusion or 1 card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except Evil Hero, Adusted Gold. You can only use this effect once per turn. Cannot attack unless you control a fusion monster. Okay, so this card is great. You pitch this card, and you can draw your Doom Prison if you haven't normal summoned yet, or you can draw your Dark Contact, or even your Dark Fusion or your Dark Supremacy. So there are a lot of different options for using Adusted Gold. Primarily, though, you're probably going to get Doom Prison. Alright, Elemental Hero Stratos. When this card is normal or special summon, you can activate 1 of these effects. Destroy spells or traps on the field up to the number of hero monsters you control except this card, or add a hero monster from your deck to your hand. That's any type of hero monster. Really good, and you will typically use this to draw Vicious Claws or Adusted Gold, depending on what you have in your hand. And I'm still not ready to talk about the 1-card combo, so we'll get into that in a minute. Evil Hero Doom Prison. This is a level 4 light rock monster. If you control a fusion monster that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Evil Hero Doom Prison once per turn this way. You can send a hero monster from your deck to the graveyard. This turn, if this face-up card is used as fusion material for the fusion summon of a hero monster, it can be used as substitute for any 1 fusion material whose name is mentioned on it, but the other materials must be correct. You can only use this effect once per turn. Okay, so Doom Prison is basically Elemental Hero Prisma, which is fine. It's better than Prisma, though, because you don't have to mill the card that you want to use. You can mill any hero, and then this card's treated as any fusion material. So what you will do with this card is you will activate its effect, you pitch your Sinister Necrom so that you can summon your Infernal Rider, and then Doom Prison can be used with Infernal Rider to make either Evil Hero, Infernal Wing, Infernal Backlash, which requires Elemental Hero, Avian, or Elemental Hero Burst Intrix plus a hero monster, or you can use it to make Neos Lord, because that requires Elemental Hero Neos. So this card can be used as a substitute for either one of those cards and go crazy. So, very good. You will typically make Infernal Wing if you're going first, and Neos Lord if you're going second. Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 hero monster from your deck to your hand, except Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. So we're playing Foolish Burial to use this card. If you have Sinister Necrom in your hand, then Shadow Mist is the card that you will mill with Doom Prison. It's an okay card. If you open this card, it's a little bit awkward. You can pitch it potentially with either Fiendsmith Tract or Evil Assault. But if you don't have a way to pitch it, you can also, as a last resort, you can also normal summon it. And since it's a level 4 dark monster, you can combine it with your Fiendsmith Engraver to make Chaos Angel, which is pretty solid. Okay. Yeah, those are the evil hero monsters. And we'll just go over the evil hero spells and traps real quick and then get to the rest of the deck. So, a hero lives if you control no monsters, pay half your life points, and special summon a level 4 or lower elemental hero monster from your deck. It has to be an elemental hero, not an evil hero. So, your only targets are Stratos and Shadow Mist. Now, this is not once per turn. So, if your opponent negates this card and you still have no cards left, you can play another one. That's why we're playing it at 3. You will usually use this to summon Airman so that you can pop off really fast. Evil Assault. This card is in the deck at 1 because sometimes you get really unlucky and you have a really bad hand. And if you have a really bad hand, this card will get you a board. It's just not the board that you want. So we're playing it at 1 so that you can specifically search this card off of your Evil Hero Dusted Gold. Okay. Discard 1 card. Take 1 level 4 or lower Evil Hero monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, except hero monsters. If this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it, add 1 Dark Fusion from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So, the card is good, but again, we do not want to be hero locked, and this is the only card in the deck that hero locks us. So if you play this card, essentially, it's because you don't have any Fiendsmiths in your hand, you don't have any ways to search Fiendsmiths, you don't have any, good Fiend monsters that you want to use as link material. You're not trying to go for Unchained, you are just simply trying to build a board. So basically, Evil Assault is you opened a Dusted Gold and nothing else, probably. And even then it's debatable about whether you would go for Evil Assault or just go straight into Doom Prison, because Evil Assault is just going to get you Doom Prison. But we'll talk about it. Okay. So with Evil Assault, you pitch a card, you special summon your Doom Prison, mill the Sinister Necrom, banish to get you Infernal Rider draws you Dark Fusion, Doom Prison and Infernal Rider fuse into the Evil Hero Infernal Wing, which draws you your Dark Supremacy, you set that and you pass. So that is the one card that you can use Evil Assault. Like, Evil Assault makes that board, which is a Negate and nothing else. It's okay. Reinforcement in the army, this draws you Stratos. Dark Contact. Activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Dark Contact once per turn. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion by shuffling its materials from your field, graveyard, and or banishment into the deck. This is treated as a fusion summon with Dark Fusion. Or you can add 1 Supreme King's Castle or Dark Fusion from your deck to your hand. Okay, so Dark Contact can be used to summon Evil Hero, Dark Knight, and nothing else. Yes, okay. But being able to just make Dark Knight from your graveyard is good enough, typically. Dark Fusion. Fusion summon 1 Fiend monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. Your opponent cannot target it with card effects this turn. Very solid card. It can be used to make any of your Fiend fusion monsters, not just your hero cards. So, really good, and I highly recommend this. Of course, since this card makes it so your opponent cannot target it with card effects, that means that your opponent cannot Effect Veiler or Imperm your Evil Hero Infernal Wing, which is insane. And then lastly, for the hero cards, we have Dark Supremacy. Target a face-up card your opponent controls up to the number of Dark Fusion and spells that mention it in your graveyard. Negate their effects until the end of this turn. If this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it, then target up to 5 hero monsters in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck. Okay, so basically, yeah, you can make Infernal Wing and you draw your Dark Supremacy to get yourself a Negate, which is a good, solid turn 1 play. Okay, that's the main deck. Let's talk about the Hero Extra deck. Evil Hero Neos Lord. Elemental Hero Neos, or a fusion the monster that mentions it, plus an effect monster on the field. Must be special summon with Dark Fusion. Cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. It's got 2,500 attack points, level 10. If this card is special summoned, or if a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard while this card is on the field, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it permanently. You can only use this effect of Evil Hero Neos Lord once per turn. Okay, so Neos Lord is just a really solid card to win the game with. You go second, you bait out some of your opponent's interaction, you play Neos Lord, you take one of their biggest monsters. Now they have one less card because you removed it, and you have one more card to kill them with. And then if they somehow survive during their turn, let's say that they make 2 monsters, and then they synchro summon or they link summon. Okay, well, a monster went to their graveyard, so you can immediately activate Neos Lord's effect, and you can take the monster that they just made. Let's say they make Splash Mage. Okay, well, 2 Cyrus monsters went to the graveyard. Your Splash Mage is now mine. Good job. So it's a good card. I highly recommend Neos Lord. This card will probably see more play in a dedicated hero list alongside Infernal Rider and Necrom. So it's probably going to be like... This is probably going to be like a package where you have a Dusted Gold, Doom Prison, Necrom, and Infernal Rider, and... It's a lot of investment, even for an Omni-Hero deck. But Neos Lord is really good. Yeah, especially since you can draw Super Polymerization with Infernal Rider, I feel like that's definitely worth it in an Omni-Hero deck. Yep. Evil Hero Dark Knight requires a Fiend monster plus a Warrior monster, level 8, 1,600 attack points, 0 defense points. Must be special summoned with Dark Fusion. Monsters your opponent controls lose attack points equal to the original attack points of all fusion materials for this card's summon. Can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if this face-up special summon card leaves in its owner's field, leaves the field by an opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, you can target a Fiend or Warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. That includes itself. So Dark Knight is immortal. Your opponent tries to destroy it, it will come back. It is not once per turn. They will continue to try and destroy it, and it will continue to rise again over and over and over again. That's a really cool idea. Very similar to Colossal Fighter, except it only has 1,600 attack points, so it's not amazing, but it does come back in defense position at least. And of course, when you first fusion summon it, let's say that you used, I don't know, like a Dusted Gold and Stratos. That's 3,900 attack points. All your opponent's monsters lose 3,900 attack points forever while Dark Knight is on the field. So it might not be the best card for killing your opponent. It does get to attack your opponent directly twice for like 3,200 damage, which is pretty decent. But it does make it so that like your opponent's board basically can't interact with you in terms of battle, which is an interesting restriction. And it does... The main thing that makes Dark Knight appealing is that it is not an activated effect. It is just a consistent effect, which means that it works on monsters who are immune to your activated effects. Like, for example, Tenpai cards or the Gimmick Puppets. There are decks that make their monsters as a whole resistant to activated effects so that they can avoid being negated and things like that. Dark Knight's effect is not an activated effect. They simply can't battle. Evil Hero Infernal Wing Infernal Backlash. Level 6, 2,100 attack points, 1,200 defense points. Must be special summon with Dark Fusion. If this card is special summon, you can add 1 Dark Fusion or 1 card that mentions it from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except a fusion monster. If your hero monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, inflict 2,100 damage to your opponent. You can only use each effective Evil Hero, Infernal Wing, Infernal Backlash once per turn. That's an interesting idea, that you can like burn your opponent for 2100 damage no matter what. It's very similar to how Flame Wing Man is supposed to work. So I like that idea, but of course the main benefit is drawing Dark Supremacy, so that's fine. It's cool that Infernal Wing got a retrain. I like Infernal Wing's art, and I like the idea that Jaden's favorite card is Flame Wing Man, so the Supreme King's favorite card is Infernal Wing. Yep. Alright, now we get into the non-hero cards. So, Fiendsmith Engraver. Level 6, 1800 attack, 2400 defense. You can discard this card to add one Fiendsmith spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can target one Fiendsmith equipped card you control and one other monster on the field, send them to the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle one other light fiend monster from your graveyard into the deck or the extra deck, and special summon this card. You can only use each effective Fiendsmith Engraver once per turn. Okay, so Engraver, you have it in your opening hand, you pitch it, you add Tract to your hand. What does Tract do? Fiendsmith's Tract. Add one light fiend monster from your deck to your hand, then discard one card. You can banish this card from your graveyard to fusion summon one Fiendsmith fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. You can only use each effect once per turn. Okay, so Tract is really cool. You can play Tract and you can draw your Evil Hero Dusted Gold so that you can begin your Evil Hero plays. So essentially, Engraver gets you started on both the Fiendsmith package and on the Elemental or the Evil Hero package. So you can Fiendsmith Tract, you can draw your Dusted Gold, search your Doom Prison, start playing your hero cards, and then since the Dusted Gold is a light fiend monster that discarded itself to the graveyard, you can activate Fiendsmith Engraver's effect, shuffle Dusted Gold back into your deck to summon it. And what do you do with your Fiendsmith Engraver? Well, you will link summon your Fiendsmith's Requiem. Fiendsmith's Requiem requires one light fiend monster. You can only special summon Fiendsmith's Requiem once per turn. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you can tribute this card. Special summon one Fiendsmith monster from your hand or deck. You can target a light, non-link fiend monster you control. Equip this card from your field or graveyard to that monster as you control as an equipped spell that gives it 600 attack, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Okay, so you link your Fiendsmith Engraver into Fiendsmith's Requiem. Fiendsmith's Requiem's ability to tribute itself as a quick effect, specifically so that it does not get impermed or effect failured, which is excellent. You use this effect and you go into Lacrima the Crimson Tears. Lacrima the Crimson Tears is a level 4 light fiend monster with 1200 attack and 1200 defense. This card is always treated as a Fiendsmith card. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Fiendsmith card from your deck to the graveyard, except Lacrima the Crimson Tears. And during your opponent's turn, if this card is in your graveyard, as a quick effect, you can target a Fiendsmith Link monster in your graveyard, shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, special summon that Link monster. You can only use each effect once per turn. So you can use Lacrima during your opponent's turn to revive your Requiem, which would, as a quick effect, summon your Engraver from the deck. So that's obviously a cool option. But when it's your turn, you're going to summon Lacrima, you're going to use its effect, and you can either pitch another Fiendsmith Engraver so that you have 2 in your graveyard, or you can pitch your Fiendsmith in Paradise. Fiendsmith in Paradise, by the way, is a trap card. It says target one level 7 or higher light fiend monster you control. Send all cards on the field to the graveyard that are not that monster. That is a very powerful effect. So obviously the trap card version is really good if you can keep it. But, if you can't, if you need to mill it, then that's fine. If your opponent special summons a monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card to send one Fiendsmith monster from your deck or your extra deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Fiendsmith in Paradise once per turn. That's a cool idea, being able to mill during your opponent's turn. Useful. Okay. And now, now that you have your Lacrima on the board, and your 2 Fiendsmith Engravers, and your Fiendsmith's Requiem in the graveyard, what do you do with it? Well, you can link Lacrima along with any other monster into the Link 2 Fiendsmith's Sequence, which is a Link 2 1200 attack points, requires 2 monsters, including a light fiend monster. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling its materials from your graveyard into the deck. Cool. That's a really cool effect. You can target one light non-link Fiend monster you control. Equip this card from your field or graveyard to that monster you control as an equipped spell with the following effect. Your opponent cannot target the equipped monster with card effects. Cool. Okay. So now that you have your Lacrima out, you use any of your hero cards and along with Lacrima to go into your Fiendsmith sequence. Fiendsmith sequence effect, return Lacrima along with Fiendsmith Engraver and Fiendsmith Engraver to the deck, which will allow you to fusion summon Fiendsmith's Desiree. Fiendsmith's Desiree is a level 9 with 2800 attack and 2400 defense. It requires Fiendsmith Engraver plus 2 light Fiend monsters. As a quick effect, you can negate the effects of face-up cards on the field up to the total link rating of link monsters equipped to this card until the end of the turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can shuffle one other light Fiend monster from your graveyard into the deck or the extra deck, then target one card on the field and send it to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Fiendsmith's Desiree once per turn. This card is excellent. It lets you negate cards, and then if your opponent, and it can't be targeted, and then if your opponent is able to destroy it somehow, well, you can just send a card on the field to the graveyard. So an amazing tool for evil heroes to use to interact with the board on the opponent's turn. Now, once you fusion summon using your Fiendsmith Engraver, and your Lacrima of the Crimson Tears, you can activate Fiendsmith's Requiem's effect from the graveyard to attach itself to the Desiree to give it 600 extra attack points, so it's 3,400 attack points, and that gives it 1 negate. Now, you still have your Fiendsmith sequence on the field. Fiendsmith sequence can target from the graveyard to attach it to your Desiree. So what you do with Fiendsmith sequence is you'll link it into your Unchained Soul Lord of Yama with another card, and that gives you your Unchained package along with your Desiree, which is very, very powerful. And then you can activate sequence's effect from the graveyard. So now Desiree is equipped with 2 cards that have a total link rating of 3, giving it 3 negates all at once. So there you go. That's the Fiendsmith package. It's very, very potent. And then there's one more card, there's 2 more cards that we need to talk about that are related to Fiendsmiths. First up is Necro-Equipped Princess, which is requires a monster equipped with a monster card plus a Fiend monster card. Must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending the above cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard. You can only control 1 Necro-Equipped Princess. If a monster is sent from the hand to the graveyard to activate a card effect, you can activate one of these effects, equip one of those monsters to this card as an equipped spell that gives it 500 attack points, or draw a card. You can only use this effect of Necro-Equipped Princess once per turn. Okay, so Necro-Equip is a card that can be made by taking, like, for example, your Lacrima of the Crimson Tears and the Fiendsmith's Requiem that you equip to it from the graveyard and sending them both to the graveyard. So if you get DD crowed or if you get somehow interrupted and you don't have really a clean path to make Desiree, Necro-Equipped Princess can summon itself just by using a Fiendsmith and the card that that's equipped to it. Because it says a monster equipped with a monster card and then a Fiend monster card. You can actually send the monster card that is in your spell and trap zone for this. And then this card is a level 6. So primarily what you want to do with it is make Triple D Wave High King Caesar. But if you can't, and you have to leave it on the field, it can still take one of your opponent's monsters that discarded itself to activate an effect and equip it so that it's not in the graveyard anymore. So weak-ish, but again, this is a backup plan if you get negated. And if you make High King Caesar, which you can make with Necro-Equipped Princess and either Aerial Eater or Infernal Wing, Infernal Backlash, or Infernal Rider, then you're in really good shape. So Triple D Wave High King Caesar is a rank 6. It requires 2 level 6 Fiend monsters. When a spell or trap or monster effect is activated, you can also use Fiendsmith Engraver as well if you still have one. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster, as a quick effect you can detach 1 material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can make one other DD monster you control, and this card gain 1800 attack points until the end of the turn. So that is not a hard once per turn effect. So you have 2 materials, so you can negate 2 different cards that your opponent activates that special summon a monster and destroy them. which is just crazy. That's just a really, really strong effect that will basically prevent your opponent from building any sort of board. So yes, this is an excellent card. Okay, then we have Aerial Eater, which is part of the Fiendsmith package. It requires 2 Fiend monsters with the same attribute, so you will always make it with 2 lights. Level 6, 2100 attack, 2600 defense. If this card is fusion summon, you can summon 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you will typically pitch your Sinister Necron. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 2 level 6 or higher Fiend monsters with the same attribute as each other from your graveyard, except Aerial Eater, and special summon this card. You can only use each effect of Aerial Eater once per turn. So, it's a level 6. It lets you pitch your Sinister Necron so that you can make your Infernal Wing, and you can just exceed both Aerial Eater and Infernal Wing into Wave High King Caesar, and you still have the Dark Fusion in your graveyard, so the Dark Supremacy that you drew is a Negate, and that's a solid end board. It does require a little bit of work, considering that you are fusion summoning twice. So you're fusion summoning with you're fusion summoning Aerial Eater, presumably with Dark Fusion, and then you're also making Inferno Wing. The only way you could do this is if you make it with Dark Contact, or you have Dark Fusion in your hand, and then you return it from your graveyard to your hand with Infernal Rider's effect. So yeah. And then the last card to talk about with the Fiendsmith stuff is Moon of the Closed Heaven. Moon of the Closed Heaven requires 2 effect monsters. It is a light link 2, and that's all that you need to worry about. It has an effect, but that effect is not ever going to happen. The main reason that we play this card is because it can be made with any 2 effect monsters, and it is a light fiend monster. So, now let's talk about the 1-card combo. You have Stratos. Either you have Stratos from A Hero Lives, or Warrior Reinforcement of the Army, or you just drew Stratos. You normal summon Stratos. You activate its effect, and you add your Evil Hero Vicious Claws from your deck to your hand. Then you activate Evil Hero Vicious Claws' effect, you target your Stratos, you summon it. Now you have 2 monsters, you link them into Moon of the Closed Heaven. Now you can link Moon of the Closed Heaven into Fiendsmith's Requiem. Activate Fiendsmith's Requiem's effect, attribute it to special summon Lacrima the Crimson Tears, pitch the Fiendsmith Engraver. Fiendsmith Engraver effect, target the Moon of the Closed Heaven in the graveyard, return it to the deck to special summon the Fiendsmith Engraver, and then now you can link Lacrima and Fiendsmith Engraver into your Fiendsmith sequence, and you have Fiendsmith Engraver, Lacrima, and Fiendsmith's Requiem in the graveyard. You can activate a Fiendsmith sequence effect, fuse all 3 of them into your Fiendsmith's Desiree, and then even though you don't have any cards to link your Fiendsmith sequence into, Fiendsmith sequence can equip itself from the field as well. So you just equip it directly to your Fiendsmith's Desiree. Now you have a Negate 2 that can't be targeted. And if it gets destroyed or sent to the graveyard, you can you can shuffle the sequence into the deck to send a card on the field to the graveyard. That's 1 card. You're never going to have just 1 card, so you will usually be able to make a far better board than just this. But that is 1 card. Stratos, that's it, and you pop off. So, with that in mind, let's talk about, I guess, the rest of the cards. So we're playing Fabled Lurie, and Fabled Lurie is when this card is discarded from your hand to the graveyard, special summon it. That is not once per turn. This is a card that you can, you play Fiendsmith's Track, you draw this, and then you immediately discard it. That's a way to get like an extra material on the field. It is a light Fiend monster, so you can use it as a 1 card to go into Requiem and start your Fiendsmith plays. So Tracked being able to draw Lurie and discard it to just immediately summon. This is what you would do with Tracked if you open Tracked and not Engraver. Right. Then we're playing Foolish Burial, which you will use to pitch either Fiendsmith Engraver or Shadow Mist. Or I guess you can pitch Necrom. Triple Tactics Talent. If your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase this turn, activate 1 of these effects, draw 2 cards, take control of 1 monster your opponent controls into the end phase, or look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it to shuffle into the deck. So I will always choose the third effect. So, like, my opponent has messed with me. I'm going to say, okay, you hand ripped yourself. I'm going to hand rip you again. And I'll triple Tactics Talent, and then they have 3 cards to start with in their hand, and I have a bunch of negates. So, that's a good card. And that is all for the main deck. And then for the extra deck, what did I not cover? Chaos Angel, 1 tuner plus 1 non-tuner light or dark monster. For this card, Synchro Summon, you can treat 1 light or dark monster you control as a tuner monster. If this card is Special Summon, you can target 1 card on the field and banish it. This card gains these effects based on the original attributes of cards used for its Synchro Summon. If it used a light monster, Synchro monsters you control are unaffected by monster effects activated by your opponent. And dark, all monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. So, Lacrima is level 4, Fiendsmith Engraver is level 6. You can usually get these 2 cards on the field at the same time. That's an easy Synchro Summon into Chaos Angel that can't be affected by your opponent's monster effects. And then if you want, you can use Shadow Mist along with Engraver to make a full Chaos Angel. There's only one card I haven't talked about. And this card is, let's say she's unique. Abao Aq the Lightless Shadow requires 2 or more monsters, including a Fiend monster. Link for 2800 attack points. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you can discard 1 card, then activate one of these effects. Destroy 1 card on the field, or banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, special summon a light or dark monster from your graveyard. During your standby phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of different monster types among the monsters in your graveyard, then place the same number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Abao Aq the Lightless Shadow once per turn. So, how can I describe this card? Abao Aq the Lightless Shadow is essentially a monster reborn every single turn. So, you discard a card, you banish her, then you choose any light or dark monster in your graveyard and revive it, and then she comes back at the end of the turn. So you can do this every single turn. Now, you are discarding a card every single turn that you do this, and it can only be used during the main phase. It's pretty interesting. Mainly, so your fusion monsters are not all that good after you use their effects, like Evil Hero, Inferno Wing, Aerial Eater, Necroquip Princess. These cards are not like good cards to leave on the field. They just have interesting effects when they're summoned, or they have interesting summoning requirements. Then you've got other cards like Moon of the Closed Heaven and Fiendsmith Sequence that don't really do anything on the field. So it's an option. You can also potentially, since it's a dark monster, you can use Unchained Soul of Rage and target a Link 2 and make it. Which is probably like your best option. If your opponent Link summons a Link 2, you can immediately take it with Unchained Soul of Rage and make Abao Aq the Lightless Shadow. And then you can like go into full Fiendsmith combo during your opponent's turn. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's the deck. It's already been 43 minutes, so I don't really want to do any replays. So I'm just going to leave a link to the replays in the description. My name is Strafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.